Hey there, today I'm going to be showing you 5 new dinner ideas that you could make using only one pot. These dinners are extra amazing because they are very low mess and they're easy to throw together. I hope you enjoy it and let's go get to cooking. To kick us off today, we are making this Mexican beefy and rice dish. So to my Dutch oven over the stove, I added 1 pound of ground beef and a white onion that I diced. I am going to break the ground beef up with my meat masher and I'm going to cook it through at this point. Once the ground beef is cooked through, I removed any grease in the pan and now I'm going to be adding in about 1.5 cups of minute brown rice. You want to make sure you use the instant or the minute brown rice, not the regular brown rice, or it won't cook properly. After I gave that a stir, I added in my seasonings: a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of salt, garlic powder, and chili powder. And then for the broth, I added in 2 cups of chicken broth. Next, you'll add in 1 cup of salsa. You could use any brand or any type of salsa you like. Lastly, I added in 1 cup of corn and a drained and rinsed can of black beans. I gave this a stir and brought it up to a simmer. I let this simmer covered on the stove for about 15 to 20 minutes, or until the rice was tender, just like this. The last couple things that I like to add in are 1 cup of cherry tomatoes that are sliced, then 1 cup of Mexican style cheese. I give this a stir, let the cheese melt down, then I serve it up. But like I said, those ingredients are optional. If you don't want to add them, you certainly don't have to. Here's my bowl of food. I like topping mine over a bed of iceberg lettuce. It kind of makes for a taco salad. I also serve this with fresh guacamole, cilantro, and tortilla chips. I really think this dinner will impress you. Even my little toddler likes it. It's just really easy for me to make. I never ever make gnocchi, but I've been wanting to make it for a while, so now we're making this sausage and tomato gnocchi. To my Dutch oven on the stove, I added 1 diced up white onion along with 1 pound of sausage. For the seasonings, I added in a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of garlic powder, then 1/2 teaspoon of pepper and salt. The last thing I added in was a tablespoon of minced garlic. I broke the sausage up and I am going to cook it through at this point. Now that we have our sausage browned and cooked through, I'm removing any excess grease in the pan. I'm just doing it with my spatula and a paper towel. I found that this little trick works wonderfully. Now I'm going to add in our 3/4 cup of heavy cream along with a can of diced tomatoes. I like using the Italian style petite diced tomatoes, but you could use any diced tomatoes you like. For the gnocchi, I'm using 16 ounces of potato gnocchi. I found it at my local Walmart. Most grocery stores sell it. And then I added in 4 cups of fresh spinach. I gave this a stir and I let it simmer on my stove for about 12 to 15 minutes. I did stir it frequently. Now that we have our gnocchi cooked and our spinach has wilted down dramatically, as you could see, I added in about 1.5 cups of mozzarella cheese that I shredded. I gave this a stir to let the cheese melt down, and then it was time to enjoy it. I sprinkled the top of mine with fresh parsley and Parmesan cheese, mainly to make it look pretty. But if you don't normally eat gnocchi, and if you haven't tried it, I definitely suggest you trying it. It's kind of like a mixture of potato and pasta. That's the best way I could describe it. I serve this alongside of a side salad with spring mix, tomato, dried cranberries, and avocado with feta cheese. Now we're making this 1-pot ham and noodle dish. To begin, to my large pot on the stove, I added about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once my oil was hot, I added in my 1 diced up white onion, along with about 1 pound of pre-cooked ham that I diced. Ham is really inexpensive, so if you're on a budget and trying to save money on your grocery bill, I definitely suggest you cooking with ham. I gave this a stir and I let the ham turn a nice golden color. It took about 5 to 7 minutes. Now I'm going to be tossing in about a tablespoon of minced garlic along with our seasonings, a half a teaspoon of salt and pepper, a teaspoon of dried parsley and basil, and then a half a teaspoon of oregano. I gave this a stir. All of those seasonings will give this dish great flavor. Now I'm adding in 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. You are going to give this a stir so the flour no longer looks white. Once the flour is well incorporated, you are going to slowly add in your 4 cups of chicken broth. You do want to add it in slowly and stir it after every time you add some in. This is going to help the flour not become clumpy. Now that we've added all of our broth in, go ahead and add your 2 cups of milk in and give this a really good stir. Bring this mixture up to a simmer, then add your 16 ounces of penne pasta in, or you could use any type of shaped pasta that you like. You are going to let this simmer on your stove for about 15 minutes or until the noodles are cooked. You do want to make sure you stir this frequently while it's simmering, and if the liquid line gets too low, go ahead and add about a cup of water in at a time so your pasta actually does cook. Now that we have our noodles tender, we are going to add in our 2 cups of frozen sweet peas. Let the peas cook in with the pasta for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then you are going to stir in your 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. Let the cheese melt down, and then it is ready to serve. You really do get the best of both worlds with this dinner. It is so easy to make, but yet it is so flavorful and delicious. I don't cook with ham often, but I really need to start cooking with it more often now just because it really is so budget friendly and it's full of flavor and protein. Now we're getting started on our meatless meal, the Southwestern skillet. So to begin, we are going to cut up our veggies, 1 red bell pepper and a yellow onion. If you want to use other veggies for this recipe, you certainly can. Now over to the pan on my stove, I have about 2 tablespoons of hot olive oil in there. I added those veggies and I'm going to cook them until they are soft. It took about 7 minutes. Now that they are soft, I added in a tablespoon of minced garlic. I gave this a stir and let the garlic become fragrant. Now I'm going to be adding in our 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning along with 1 cup of Orzo pasta. If you don't normally cook with Orzo pasta, it's kind of like a mixture between rice and pasta. It really is good. Now I'm adding in 1 can of drained and rinsed black beans, a drained can of corn, and 2 cups of chicken broth. Next I'm going to toss in 1 can of rotel. I gave this a really good stir and I let this simmer covered on my stove for about 15 to 20 minutes or until the orzo was cooked, and I did stir this frequently while it was simmering. Now that our orzo has cooked and most of the liquid has absorbed, I'm going to add in about a 1/2 cup of Mexican style cheese. If you don't care for cheese, you certainly do not need to add the cheese in, and you can make this dairy-free very easily, but here's my plate of food. I topped mine with fresh avocado slices, cilantro, and lime. This has to be one of my all-time favorite meatless meals just because it really is filling. It has quite a bit of protein in it, and we really did not miss the meat in this meal. We really do love chicken parmesan in our house, so now we're making this 1-pot chicken parmesan. So to my Dutch oven, I have 2 tablespoons of hot olive oil in there. Then I added my 1 pound of cubed chicken breast. I seasoned it with 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of garlic powder, and onion powder. I gave this a stir and I let the chicken cook through. Now that our chicken is cooked, I added in a tablespoon of minced garlic. I gave it a stir, and then I added in our pasta. I used 16 ounces of rigatoni, but you could use any type of pasta you like. For the marinara sauce, I used 24 ounces of that, and then I added in 3.5 cups of chicken broth. I gave this a stir and I let it simmer covered for about 15 to 20 minutes. Of course, I did stir it frequently while it was simmering. And then once the pasta was cooked through, I added in about 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese. I let the cheese melt down, and then it was time to eat it. If you're a big chicken parmesan fan like we are, you will definitely devour this meal. It's amazing because it comes together in only 1 pot, so that definitely saves you on dishes and on time. I served this alongside of a side salad and it was delicious. I hope you found a one pot meal for yourself today, and I would love to have you here, so go ahead and subscribe down below the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.